My guest today is from Hindalco, Satish Pai, who is the MD and CEO of the company. Mr. Pai, thank you very much for joining us on NDTV Profit. To begin with, sir, a good set of numbers. Can you take us through how the volume has been and the realization during the quarter?
So if you look at the outstanding points of this quarter, first I would like to highlight that copper had probably the best ever quarter with 776 crores of EBITDA. Their sales were 135 KT, largely driven by copper rod sales because of the whole electrification wire and cable demand. Our aluminium downstream business also had a great quarter. They bounced back with a sale of 105 KT from the 90 levels as the market demand came in strongly. So these two were the standouts. The upstream business, because the costs were under control with 32% EBITDA margins, the aluminium upstream also contributed very strongly with 2,700 crores of EBITDA. So put together, Q4 was great and capped off a great FY24 for Hindalco.
How was the pricing and the realization part of it? Because you got a good EBITDA number, but have you seen uptick in the copper prices because we saw a flattish prices about to pick up in the end of December. So how are we placed as far as pricing is concerned in the copper and aluminium?
See, both in copper and aluminium, the pricing was not as much as the premiums, the conversion premiums in the place of copper. And in aluminium, it was the cost of production that was low that helped to drive the margins. The LME in Q4 was only 2,200. So really, it was not the top line driving the margins. It was conversion premiums, cost of production that was driving the margins.
How do you see the demand? Because you've seen good volume growth as well coming in. How do you see demand? Because you spoke briefly about the copper demand, which is coming because of electrification and demand from wires and the cables. But what about aluminium there?
See, aluminium demand is growing very strongly. I'll just give you a data point. About a year ago, India was consuming about 4 million tons of aluminium. In FY24, now the run rate is reaching close to 5 million. So the growth of aluminium driven by, let's say, building and construction, auto, conductor cables, is extremely strong. So I think both aluminium and copper demands in India are growing at 7 to 8% CAGR year on year.
And which are the sectors that are driving that demand? If you can give us an idea of where the demand is actually coming in from.
Okay, so common between aluminium and copper is the electrical sector driven by wires, cable, and conductors. Then if you look at the other sectors for aluminium, it's driven by auto, it's driven by cookware, it's driven by building and construction. So all these other sectors are contributing to the growth in aluminium demand.
Can you take us through how you see FY25 looking from point of demand and as well as from a point of volume growth?
See, I think that FY25, the demand is going to be strong. We have started off the commodity prices on a strong footing because both aluminium and copper prices are high. And I think that at least in Q1, coal cost and our cost of production also seems to be under control. So I think that, I am expecting this year to be quite a good year if this keeps up over the next coming quarters.
And that would be led by more of an uptick from prices or again cost controls and belt tightening, which will ensure that good margins are there?
See, in any commodity business, both the top line and the costs are important. So I think we need prices of aluminium to be good. And at the same time, we need that the cost of production driven by coal, CP, coke, pitch do not increase too much. So generally, a combination of this is required to make sure that we sustain the margins that we saw in Q4.
Can you give us an update of what is the kind of capacity that may come in FY25-26? How are we placed with respect to Capex?
So first, FY25, we are planning a Capex of 6,000 crores. And it would be fair to say that in the coming few years, we will be doing 7,000 crores of Capex. And on the aluminium side, about 170 KT of capacity is going to get commissioned in December. And on the copper side, we have about 25 KT of inner groove tubes coming in. So I think over the next few years, you're going to see quite a lot of downstream capacity coming in both aluminum and copper.
What would the total size of the capex cycle? You mentioned this year 6,000 and next couple of years 6,000 or 6,000 to 7,000. Are we looking around say 20 or 1,000 crores in the next 3 years?
So we are looking actually more like 30,000 crores over the next 3-4 years.
Okay, and does it and it does not include Novelis. So can you take us to Novelis also, how Novelis is doing, because it's also on an aggressive capex?
So because of federal security laws and the quiet period we are going through, I will not be able to talk about Novelis on this call.
Okay, but you won't be able to give a basic of how the financials have been for Novelis as well?
No, I think, the Novelis did their quarterly earnings cross about 2 weeks ago. I think you will have to look at that transcript.
Okay. One question which I wanted to ask you is that, what was the reason why you went for a Novelis IPO? If you can give us that, because that doesn't come under the federal laws.
No, I think anything related to Novelis IPO, I'm not allowed to talk right now during
Okay,
the call.
but is it will you be selling? Will Hindalco be reducing its stake as part of the IPO, or is it a primary issuance?
Again, I think I will not be able to talk about anything related to the IPO on this call. I'm sorry.
Okay. My final question to you is with respect to you've been we've been looking at margins which are at around 12% odd. Is there enough room for you to increase the margin further?
So look, I think the margins, you have to split it down by business. The upstream aluminum business is running at a 32% EBITDA. So I think that this is probably the industry best. But in Q1, as LME prices strengthen, we think that at least in Q1, those margins are going to expand.
And any idea how much you expect LME prices to go up in FY25? Because we've been expecting that in FY24, we didn't see much of a luck there. But in FY25, given the kind of demand scenario which you're painting of 7 to 8% growth, do you see enough price hikes coming in?
See, I think that the Q1, April, May has started off very strongly. LME hit 2,700, currently is trading at 2,600. But the market is very volatile. I mean, it can go up and down $100, $150 in a week. So I think I'm staying fairly cautious to say that my expectation is that LME will be between 2,300 and 2,500 on an average this year. But I hope I'm wrong and it's on the higher side.
Okay. And how do you see the China factor playing out in this whole scenario?
I think a lot of what we are seeing is because people are expecting that the Chinese economy has picked up and the growth in China will be strong. So that is one of the reasons why commodity prices are picking up. That and the strength of the American economy is one of probably the two important reasons.
And you're seeing a good rebound happening in the US, right? Because that's what will,
The largest market for commodities, and that's why the demand. See, between America and China, majority of the commodity sales happen in these two areas.
Mm-hmm. And you're seeing FY25 is going to be a big one for both US and China coming back into play.
That is what the expectations are, which is why the commodity prices are running up.
Mr. Pai, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much for joining us on NDTV Profit.